I'm so scared. The moment I realized I was lost, I panicked. I can't even remember where I left my purse or my phone. This is the only place I could still remember, so I asked someone to bring me here. Ania sobbed like a frightened child after getting lost in the night. Then she started hitting her own head. It's all because of me. Why does this illness have to make me like this? I don't want to forget anyone. After hearing those words, Damien broke down in tears. He grabbed her hand and held it down before she could hurt herself, then pulled her into a tight embrace. It's okay now. I'm here. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Looking at the wife who had spent so many years taking care of this family, Damien felt a storm of guilt rise inside him. He had been far too indifferent to her, and that indifference had led to the pain she was carrying now. So, you're tired of your own fried chicken today? Is that why you invited us out? Ada asked with a smile. I eat fried chicken every day. Once in a while, I just want something different, Ania replied. Then let's enjoy it. I already ordered everything, Renee said. Works for me. It's not often you have time to treat us to dinner, Ada replied. The three middle-aged women chatted happily in a neighborhood restaurant. They were close friends. Even though they were all in their late 40s, they still talked to each other like they had for years. The three women were Ada, Renee, and Ania. Ania was 48 years old. She owned Ania's Chicken, a well-known fried chicken restaurant in Colorado Springs. Ada and Renee both worked for a local newspaper. They had been close friends for a long time, so they often met for meals, shopping, or short outings. Whenever something happened in their lives, they shared it with one another. Your food is here, a young employee said as he walked over. Enjoy your meal, Mom, Miss Ania, Miss Ada. Since I knew you were coming today, I made sure the kitchen prepared our specials for you. Tyrell smiled as he placed the dishes on the table. He was Renee's younger son. He worked part-time at the restaurant to learn how to cook. My goodness, your son really knows how to flatter people, Ania said with a smile. Let's see what these special dishes are. She looked over the food on the table, nodded with satisfaction, picked up her fork, and took a bite. How is it, Miss Ania? Tyrell asked. It's delicious. Tyrell smiled. Miss Ania, the chef's knife you gave me last month has been great. I really love it. Ania stopped eating after hearing that. She thought for a few seconds before asking, I gave you a knife? Tyrell looked surprised. He wondered why she didn't remember something that had happened only a month earlier. Yes, you gave it to me last month. Don't you remember? That's right, Renee added. You gave him that knife just last month. Ania paused for a moment before nodding. Oh, I must have forgotten. I've been forgetting things a lot lately. It's okay, Tyrell said. Enjoy your meal. He headed back into the kitchen. Ada looked at Ania. You've been forgetting things? Yeah, it happens a lot these days. Renee smiled. I've been forgetting things too. Maybe it's menopause. You should go see a doctor. Yeah, maybe I should. It's exhausting when I keep forgetting things. Ada looked at Ania and asked, So, how are things with Damien? The same as always. Ada sighed. I really don't understand him. Everything he has today is because of you. He was a poor college student when he married you. Now he's a professor, and you helped him get there. You raised both of your daughters by yourself, too. Damien and his mother should appreciate everything you've done instead of looking down on you. Even your daughters seem to follow their father and grandmother. I feel so bad for you. Ania stayed quiet for a few seconds before speaking. I never thought marriage would turn out like this. The harder I work, the less Damien seems to notice me. I don't understand why. The atmosphere became quiet. Renee quickly changed the mood. Don't worry. I believe Damien will realize everything you've sacrificed for him one day. Your daughters will understand too. Just believe that. 50 isn't the end of life. After hearing that, Ania and Ada smiled again. They finished dinner together, then stopped for coffee before each of them went home. After getting home, Ania set her purse down and entered the code to unlock her front door. The first time, wrong. The second time, wrong. The third time, still wrong. She had forgotten the code to her own house again. She took out her phone and called Damien. At that moment, Damien was in a luxury hotel with Brianna. When he saw Ania's name on the screen, he answered the call. Hello? Damien, what's the code for the front door again? 4,688. As soon as Ania heard the code, she ended the call, unlocked the door, and walked inside. Damien looked at his phone, smirked, and muttered to himself. She called just to ask for the door code. "What's wrong, Professor?" Brianna asked as she wrapped her arm around his. Brianna was a third-year student at the university where Damien taught, and the two of them were having an affair. "Nothing." "What were we talking about?" Damien asked. "My birthday present," Brianna replied. "So, what do you want for your birthday?" Damien asked. Brianna ran her fingers across his cheek and said in a sweet voice, "A necklace." She smiled before adding, "And the pair of shoes I wanted." She looked at him expectantly. "All right, if you like it, I'll buy it for you," Damien replied with a smile. Brianna beamed. "Professor, you're so good to me." She reached up, loosened his tie, pulled him closer, and the two of them enjoyed their time together. A few days later, Ania decided to see a doctor. After listening to her describe the symptoms she had been experiencing, the doctor asked her to complete several memory tests. When the tests were finished, the doctor gave her the diagnosis. "You may be showing signs of early-onset Alzheimer's disease," the doctor said. "This condition is usually associated with older adults, but it can develop earlier in some people. To be certain, I'd like you to have an MRI scan of your brain." Ania refused the scan. She left the hospital with the diagnosis in her hand, her whole body shaking. Alzheimer's? How could that be? She wasn't even 50 yet. How could she possibly have a disease people usually associated with old age? She refused to believe the doctor's diagnosis. There had to be a mistake. She told herself she was fine. She only needed more vitamins and regular exercise. That had to be the reason. It was probably menopause, nothing more. She couldn't be sick. She kept repeating those thoughts to herself because if the diagnosis was true, life had been far too unfair to her. She had spent her entire life sacrificing everything for her husband and children. Now that Damien had built a successful career and both of their daughters were grown, she had finally begun to have a little time for herself. She couldn't accept that this was happening now. Ania still remembered the days when she and Damien attended the same college. He was 2 years older than she was. Both of them grew up in Colorado Springs, and both came from poor families. They fell in love, and then she became pregnant. After they got married, Ania decided to leave college. 3 months after giving birth, she left her baby with her mother so she could go to work. Because she was a talented cook, she found a job at a local fried chicken restaurant. A year later, she opened her own restaurant. Business went well, and she was able to support the entire family. After graduating from college, Damien continued his education and later accepted a teaching position at a university in the city. Because Ania took care of the family's finances and handled everything at home, Damien had the opportunity to continue studying. Now, at nearly 50 years old, he had earned a doctorate and was a respected professor. Their older daughter, Cadence, had graduated from college and was working as a doctor at one of the city's largest hospitals. Their younger daughter, Kyra, was in her 3rd year at an arts college. They had also been able to buy a house of their own and move out, while Damien's mother, Latifah, continued living in her old home. Ania had once planned to have a 3rd child, but when she was 3 months pregnant, she had an argument with Latifah. Latifah pushed her, causing her to lose the baby. After that, she was never able to have another child. Ania had sacrificed so much for her family, but neither her husband nor her mother-in-law ever acknowledged those sacrifices. Or perhaps they knew and simply chose to ignore them. Latifah always believed the family had everything they had because her son was talented. She constantly criticized Ania for not giving the family a grandson to carry on the family name. She often spoke badly about her in front of Damien and regularly came to the house just to start arguments. Their 2 daughters were also stubborn and often talked back to their mother. Even so, Ania always believed that one day Damien and the girls would recognize everything she had done for them. She wanted to keep working hard for her family and continue living a happy life with the people she loved. Lately, though, she had been forgetting things more and more often. Today, the doctor had told her she might have Alzheimer's disease. "That's ridiculous," Ania murmured. She took a deep breath, got into her car, and drove home. She refused to think about what the doctor had said. It had to be a mistake. At Latifah's house, she and Damien were sitting in the living room. Once again, the conversation was about criticizing Ania. "Have you heard what people have been saying?" Latifah asked as she took a sip of water. "What are they saying?" Damien asked. Your wife has been going around telling everyone that you're only successful because of her. It's ridiculous. Look at everything you've accomplished. You earned it yourself. What has she ever done? Yet she keeps telling people she's the reason you became successful. She should be ashamed of herself. She grew up poor, was raised by a single mother, and never even finished college. What could she possibly have done? She ran a fried chicken restaurant. How much money could that have made? And I've even heard people say your position at the university is because of her. Doesn't that bother you? Latifah curled her lip before continuing. If you hadn't married her, you might be the president of a university by now. She couldn't even give this family a grandson, yet she keeps talking about everything she sacrificed. Damien frowned when his mother brought up the fact that Ania couldn't have a son. Although he agreed with her that Ania hadn't contributed to his academic success, he didn't agree about that. We were supposed to have a son. You pushed her, and she lost the baby. She had to have a hysterectomy after that. That wasn't her fault. It was yours. Latifah raised her voice. How is that my fault? I barely pushed her. She lost the baby and ended up needing surgery because she was unlucky. Now she's blaming everything on me, and you're taking her side? I'm not taking her side. I'm just telling the truth. That happened years ago, but you keep blaming her for not having a son. That's one of the reasons she became depressed. Do you even realize that? Latifah let out a cold laugh. She's pretending, and you actually believe her? She's manipulating you. You need to stop letting her control you. She makes more money than you do, so you should be the one managing all of her finances. Otherwise, she'll end up giving everything to her own mother. And don't forget the house. Transfer it into your name. You never know what might happen in a marriage. Your wife is more calculating than you think. You need to protect yourself before it's too late. After saying that, Latifah stood up. Damien sat there quietly for a while before leaving. He couldn't stop thinking about what his mother had just said. The next morning, while Ania was at the gym, she received a text message from Damien. Come home. Mom's here. After reading the message, Ania let out a tired sigh. She knew that every time her mother-in-law came over, she would spend the entire visit criticizing and complaining about her. Even though they had lived separately for years, Latifah had never left her alone. Ania's father-in-law had passed away. She had once thought about inviting Latifah to live with them, but Latifah was so difficult to get along with that she decided to let her continue living by herself. Even so, Latifah still came over regularly just to pick a fight. Today would be no different. She would complain about how lonely she was and hint that she had been abandoned by her son. When Ania walked into the house, she saw Latifah stretched out on the couch, mumbling to herself, while Damien still looked half asleep, sitting there listening to his mother complain. Oh, my life is so miserable. I think I'm going to die soon. If I die today, who will take care of my funeral? Latifah groaned without even opening her eyes. Ania walked over, smiled faintly, and said, You're not dying anytime soon. I saw you exercising this morning. Someone who's healthy enough to do that isn't about to die. You should go home instead of coming here and making noise all day. Hearing that, Latifah opened her eyes, jumped to her feet, and shouted, Who are you to tell me to leave? Is this your house? Yes, this is my house, so I think it's time for you to go home. Latifah was furious, but she couldn't argue with that. The house had been purchased by Ania, so she had no right to stay there if she wasn't welcome. You're a snake! I can't believe you treat me like this! Is this how your mother taught you to treat your mother-in-law? Or maybe she couldn't teach you because you grew up without a father. Latifah shouted as she grabbed her purse and stormed out. I'm exhausted, Damien muttered with a yawn as he rubbed his forehead. The argument between his wife and his mother had given him another headache. He leaned back on the couch and pressed his fingers against his temples. Seeing that, Ania walked into the kitchen and made him a glass of honey water to help with his hangover. Here, drink this. Damien immediately sat up and reached for the glass, but before he could take a drink, a sharp pain shot through his stomach. He grabbed his abdomen and rushed into the bathroom. Ania watched him, then shook her head. She went to change her clothes before heading to Ania's chicken. Ever since she had expanded her small fried chicken shop into a full-service restaurant, her workload had become much lighter. She had hired a manager, kitchen staff, and cooks. She was only responsible for preparing the restaurant's signature seasoning, so she had much more time to spend with her family and take care of herself. Just then, Damien's phone on the table chimed with a new message. Ania picked it up and looked at the screen. "Thank you, sweetheart. I love the necklace." The message was from a young woman, along with a photo of her wearing the necklace around her neck. Ania opened the woman's profile. There were many photos of her and Damien going out together, having meals together, and spending time together. She stood there in shock for a few seconds before quickly calming herself down. She took out her own phone and photographed everything on the screen. Then she put Damien's phone back exactly where it had been. She picked up the glass of honey water she had made for him, walked into the kitchen, and poured it into the sink. He didn't deserve to drink something she had prepared for him. He was having an affair. She would expose both of them. Over the next several days, although Ania thought about it constantly, she acted as if nothing had happened around Damien. She didn't want him to know that she had discovered the affair because he would only become more careful and hide everything. After looking into it, she learned that the woman Damien was seeing was Brianna, one of his students at the university. Brianna also lived in Colorado Springs. The truth was, Ania wasn't completely shocked when she found out Damien was cheating. Ever since she had undergone a hysterectomy, she knew she could no longer meet all of his physical needs the way she once had. If he had been paying for casual encounters with strangers, she believed she could have accepted it. But having an affair with one of his own students, a young woman close to his daughter's age, was something she could never accept. She wasn't going to let it go. After thinking it over again and again, Ania decided to meet Brianna first and ask her to leave Damien. She didn't want to make a public scene. No matter what, Damien was still a respected professor, and if the affair became public, his reputation at the university would be ruined. She didn't want that. She was almost 50 years old now, old enough to know what she should and shouldn't do. She wasn't going to deal with this the way people did in the viral videos online. She would handle it in her own way, quietly, but in a way that would make both Damien and Brianna think twice. After making up her mind, Ania called Brianna and asked her to meet at a coffee shop. Brianna was already sitting across from Ania at the coffee shop. She was wearing a light yellow dress. Her chestnut-colored hair fell in soft curls over her shoulders. Her makeup was light, but she was still very attractive. Her biggest advantage was her youth and beauty. Ania looked at her for a moment before speaking. "Do you know who I am?" "Of course I do," Brianna replied calmly with her arms crossed. "You're the owner of the famous fried chicken restaurant. Is that all?" Ania asked. "You're Professor Damien's wife." Ania was slightly surprised by how much Brianna already knew about her. It seemed she had looked into her before they met. "What else do you know about me?" Ania asked. Brianna leaned back in her chair, showing no sign of fear. "You're almost 50 years old now. You're at the age where women go through menopause. Maybe you've already gone through it." Brianna deliberately said those words to provoke her. She was mocking Ania for being older and making it clear that she believed Ania could never compete with her. Ania, however, remained calm. Instead of getting angry, she reached into her purse, took out her phone, opened the photo Brianna had sent to Damien showing off the necklace around her neck, and held the screen in front of her. "This picture should have been sent to a guy your own age," Ania said. "Not to a man who's old enough to be your father," Brianna smiled. "I think Professor Damien looks young and handsome." "Does your father know about this?" Ania asked. "No. Does he know you've been sleeping with a man his age?" Brianna didn't answer. "Then maybe I should give him a call and let him know?" Ania took out her phone and showed Brianna a phone number saved in her contacts. It was her father's number. The moment Brianna saw it, the color drained from her face. "Stop playing these games," she said. "Are you afraid your father will find out?" Ania asked. "If you don't want him to know, then leave the university and stay away from my husband." "Are you crazy?" Brianna snapped. "Why should I leave school? You can choose to leave on your own, or you can stay away from Damien. You won't have anything to do with his life anymore. Who do you think you are? What gives you the right to tell me to quit school? If you refuse to walk away, then I'll speak to your father. He's a teacher too. I don't think he'll accept his daughter having an affair with a married man. You're still young. Don't ruin your future because of this. One day you'll regret it. If you were my daughter, I would have slapped you. And I believe your father would feel the same way." After saying that, Ania stood up and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Brianna sitting there in silence, furious. Brianna sat there for a while before taking out her phone and calling Damien. The two of them met a short time later and sat inside Damien's car. Brianna leaned against him and burst into tears. "Damien, your wife threatened me. I'm scared. I don't know what to do." I can't quit college. Damien was startled when he realized Ania had discovered their relationship, but seeing Brianna crying made him feel sorry for her. He took a deep breath, gently patted her on the back, and tried to comfort her. It's okay. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. You don't have to quit school. She can't do anything to you. After Damien reassured her that he would deal with his wife, Brianna finally felt relieved. She stopped worrying about Ania's warning and continued seeing Damien as if nothing had happened. A few days later, however, Brianna received another call from Ania. Ania told her that she was going to meet with the university president. The news frightened Brianna, and she immediately called Damien again, hoping he could find another solution. What Brianna didn't know was that Ania's warning made Damien even more anxious. He knew that if Ania went to the university president, news of his affair with one of his students would become public. The president would know, his colleagues would know, and the reputation he had built over so many years would be destroyed. He understood that Ania wasn't making empty threats. She was warning him. Afraid that his career would be ruined, Damien still couldn't bring himself to end the relationship with Brianna. Instead, he told her that from now on they would only meet in secret so Ania wouldn't find out. Brianna didn't like the idea, but she had no choice except to accept it. Damien was furious with Ania, yet he didn't dare do anything reckless. Around her, he continued acting as if everything was normal. After temporarily dealing with the situation involving her husband and the young student, Ania turned her attention back to work and tried to take better care of her health. Even though she had been taking vitamins and exercising regularly, her memory problems kept coming back. It genuinely worried her. Miss Ania, I've already prepared the breakfast menu for the tour group from Texas, just like you asked, one of the restaurant employees said. Ania looked at him in surprise. I told you to prepare that menu? Yes. You told me 3 days ago. You said the group had made a reservation in advance, asked me to get everything ready, and said you were going to cook for them yourself. Did I? Ania stood there for a moment. She had forgotten again. Seeing the look on her face, the employee asked, Is something wrong? No, nothing. Ania immediately walked into the restroom. Her face felt hot and sweat covered her body. She couldn't stay calm anymore. She had forgotten again. She remembered what the doctor had told her during her last visit. That frequent memory loss was one of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease. Ever since leaving the hospital, she had kept telling herself that she was fine, that everything was simply part of menopause. But the same thing kept happening over and over again. This time, she had completely forgotten that she had instructed an employee to prepare a special menu for the restaurant's guests. That realization frightened her. Could she really have Alzheimer's? Standing in front of the restroom mirror, Ania looked at her own reflection as her body shook. She tried to reassure herself once again. I'm fine. I don't have Alzheimer's. I'm perfectly fine. She turned on the faucet and splashed cold water across her face again and again. She wanted to clear her mind and get back to work. After a few minutes, she finally felt calmer. She picked up her purse and walked out of the restaurant. About 20 minutes later, the tour guide arrived at Ania's Chicken with the group. He had made the reservation in advance because the guests specifically wanted Ania to prepare the restaurant's signature fried chicken herself. The group waited for about 5 minutes, but Ania never came out. One of the employees thought she was still in the restroom and went to check, but she wasn't there. They called her phone, but she didn't answer. The staff immediately informed Elliot, the restaurant manager. Elliot came out and apologized to the tour group. He explained that the restaurant's chefs could prepare the meal instead, but the guests refused. They had come because they wanted to taste the food made by Ania herself. Some of them even became upset, saying she had acted arrogantly and misled them. When Ania got home, she opened her purse and took out her phone. She saw many missed calls from the restaurant staff and from Elliot. She immediately called him back. Elliot, what happened at the restaurant? Miss Ania. Where did you go? You went home? But you promised you'd personally prepare today's meal for the tour group. The moment Elliot said those words, Ania remembered everything. After leaving the restroom, she had completely forgotten that she had promised to cook for the guests herself. Her phone slipped from her hand and fell onto the floor. Miss Ania? Miss Ania? Elliot called out several times, but she didn't answer. Thinking she must be busy, he eventually ended the call. Ania slowly sat down on the couch. Her head felt heavy. She buried both hands in her hair until it became completely messy. Could it really be true? She whispered. Do I really have Alzheimer's? The very next day, Ania went back to the hospital. This time, the doctor asked her to have an MRI, and she agreed. After reviewing the scan, the doctor confirmed that she had early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Because the illness had appeared much earlier than usual, it was likely to progress more quickly. As the doctor spoke, the color drained from Ania's face. Her ears rang, and she could barely hear another word. She stared blankly at the brain scan while the doctor pointed to the affected areas. She remained seated without reacting. It was true. She really had Alzheimer's. Ania slowly got to her feet and walked out of the examination room. The doctor called after her to explain how the disease progressed and how medication could help slow it down, but she kept walking. Step by step, she made her way out of the hospital. When she reached the front entrance, she sat down on the stone steps. Her body shook. Her nose burned, but she couldn't cry. She couldn't smile either. She didn't even know what she was feeling anymore. She still couldn't accept the truth. She had always believed she was healthy. Why had she been forgetting so many things? Was the doctor really right? If she truly had Alzheimer's, what was she supposed to do? She was still too young to face a disease like this. There were still so many beautiful things in her life that she wanted to remember. She wasn't ready to forget them. Ania remained there until evening. As she watched people hurrying past the hospital, she thought they were all on their way home to be with their families after a long day. She had a family too. She wanted to go home to them. The next day was Saturday. She decided to call both of her daughters home so the whole family could have dinner together. It had been a long time since everyone had sat around the same table. Cadence was always busy at the hospital, and Kyra had insisted on moving out so she could focus on music with her friends. She only came home once a month for dinner. Ania stood up and went home. The next morning, she didn't go to the restaurant. She left everything to the staff. After returning from the gym, she made breakfast for herself and Damien before going grocery shopping. She bought a large amount of food to prepare dinner for her family. That evening, the dining table was filled with dishes. Damien, Cadence, and Kyra all came home. Looking at the table, Damien asked, "Are we celebrating something today?" "It's been so long since we've all had dinner together," Ania said with a smile. Unlike Ania, who had been looking forward to the meal, Damien, Cadence, and Kyra didn't seem very happy. Cadence looked at the table and said, "Why did you make so much food?" Damien agreed. "There's no way we can finish all of this. If there's any left, we can eat it tomorrow," Ania replied. Kyra always has a good appetite. Kyra glanced at her mother and gave a faint smile. "I'm only here tonight. I come home once a month. I won't be here tomorrow," Damien smiled. "I support what you're doing, but you should think about moving back home." Cadence looked at her sister. "Dad's right. You're still young. You don't always know what's best for yourself." Kyra immediately looked at Cadence. "Hearing you talk makes me sick. You don't understand anything about me, so stop judging me. My band is writing original music." "I'm not judging you," Cadence replied. "I just think I'm making better choices than you are. Starting a band sounds more like a hobby than a real career." "Are you serious?" Kyra shouted. "You don't know anything about what I'm doing," Damien spoke calmly. "Your sister has a point. Maybe you should think about what she's saying." Kyra could no longer hold back. She stood up. "Why do you always take her side? Why am I always the one who's wrong? That's exactly why I hate being in this house. That's why I moved out. You and Cadence can stay here and have dinner together." As Kyra turned to leave, Ania slammed both hands onto the table. The dishes clattered against the silverware. Everyone froze. She had never reacted like that before. No matter how often her daughters argued or talked back to her, she had always stayed quiet or spoken gently. This time was different. "Stop arguing!" Ania shouted. "Can't we have one peaceful dinner together? Is it really that hard to sit down and enjoy one meal as a family?" "Fine. Then nobody eats." She stood up, gathered every plate of food from the table, dumped everything into the soup bowls, and threw it all into the trash. After that, she walked into her bedroom, leaving Damien and the two girls staring after her in silence. Soon afterward, everyone left. Cadence went to her room. Kyra returned to her apartment. Damien went to see Brianna. Alone in the dark, Ania sat on the floor without even turning on the lights. She thought about what had happened during dinner. She had lost control because she couldn't stop thinking about her illness. She had taken her anger out on her husband and daughters. The ruined family dinner was her fault. She still couldn't accept the truth. It was a truth that was simply too painful for her. Over the next several days, Ania did her best to act as though nothing had changed. She didn't tell anyone about her illness. She began searching online for information about the early signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease so she could understand what was happening to her and gradually adjust to living with her worsening memory. She had started accepting the fact that she was sick, but she never knew when she might suddenly forget something. She still had her restaurant, her friends, and her family. She wanted to keep working. She wanted to see them, talk with them, and spend time with them. Carrying several cans of bird's nest drink in her hands, Ania left home to visit her friend Ada. After leaving the house, she wandered through one street after another. She kept walking, but couldn't remember where Ada lived. When she finally realized it, she found herself standing at an intersection far away from Ada's neighborhood. Panic set in. Ania immediately took out her phone and called Ada. As soon as Ada answered, Ania told her she couldn't remember the way. Ada told her to stay exactly where she was and said she would come pick her up. Even after they arrived at Ada's house, Ania still hadn't recovered from the shock. Her face was pale, and even her lips had lost their color. She sat down in a chair, her body still shaking. "Here, drink some hot tea," Ada said as she placed a warm cup in Ania's hands. Then she raised her voice in frustration. "You should have told me about your illness sooner. Why would you hide something this serious from me?" I don't know why I couldn't bring myself to tell you," Ania replied. Her lips quivered before she finally burst into tears. The sadness she had been holding inside for so long came pouring out. It was like a dam filled to the brim. All it took was one small crack for everything to break loose. Ada gently patted her shoulder. "Calm down. Please calm down. Damien and your daughters don't know about this either, do they? How long were you planning to keep it from all of us? If you hadn't gotten lost today, how much longer were you going to hide it?" By the time Ada finished speaking, she was crying too. Ania leaned against her shoulder, sobbing. "What am I supposed to do about my family, Ada? My daughters still need me. What am I going to do?" Her cries became louder and louder. She was terrified. All she could see ahead of her was a future filled with loneliness. She was afraid that one day she would forget everything. She wouldn't remember anyone, and she wouldn't even remember herself. She had seen many elderly people with Alzheimer's on television. They forgot their children, forgot the way home, and eventually forgot who they were. One day, she would become just like them. That thought was unbearable for someone who wasn't even 50 years old. Her daughters still didn't have families of their own. She wanted to see them happy. She wanted to be there on their wedding days. She wanted to keep taking care of them. Those were simple wishes for any mother. Why couldn't she have them? Why had life treated her so unfairly? Ania kept crying while Ada held her tightly. They stayed like that until Ania cried herself to sleep. Only then did Ada help her into the bedroom. When Ania woke up, she was much calmer. The two of them had dinner together and talked about returning to the hospital. After Ada encouraged her, Ania finally regained some hope. She agreed to return to the hospital and follow the doctor's treatment plan. The very next day, Ania returned to the hospital. This time, the doctor assigned to her case was Olaf, a young physician with an excellent reputation. After reviewing her medical records and examining her condition, Olaf said, "Your condition is progressing rather quickly. I need you to follow the hospital's treatment plan exactly as prescribed." Ania nodded with a faint smile, but the worry in her heart remained. She looked at Olaf and quietly asked, "How much time do I have left? There are still so many things I need to do." Hearing that question, Olaf deliberately avoided giving her a direct answer. Instead, he began explaining her treatment plan in detail. Ania seemed to understand why he was avoiding the question. She looked straight at him and asked again, "How much longer do I have?" Olaf smiled gently. "Try to stay positive. Even though your condition is progressing quickly, I'll do everything I can to slow it down. Let's believe better days are still ahead." Once again, Olaf avoided answering her question. That was enough for Ania to realize she probably didn't have much time left. Although she believed in modern medicine, she also knew there was no cure for Alzheimer's disease. The medication could only slow the progression of memory loss. And because her illness was advancing so quickly, The day she forgot everything might come much sooner than she wanted. I have to hurry, she thought. I need to do everything I still want to do before I forget it all. Ania nodded, agreeing to begin treatment, then stood up and left the office. As she stepped into the hallway, Cadence happened to walk by. The woman disappearing down the corridor looked strangely familiar. She looked so much like her mother that Cadence stopped for a second before smiling to herself. Why would Mom be at the hospital? She murmured. Cadence walked into Olaf's office and found him studying brain scan images on his computer. Curious, she asked. What are you looking at so closely? A brain scan from a patient with Alzheimer's disease, Olaf answered. She's still relatively young, but the disease is progressing very quickly. I'm trying to find a way to slow it down. Cadence leaned over to look at the screen. The patient's name immediately caught her attention. It was her mother's name. She stiffened. Her name is Ania? She asked. Yeah. Do you know her? Olaf replied. No, I don't. Cadence quickly left the office. That can't be Mom. It can't be. She kept repeating those words to herself as she hurried into the hallway. She immediately took out her phone and called her mother. Mom, where are you? I'm at the restaurant. I just saw someone who looked exactly like you at the hospital. Why would you be there? Please don't hide anything from me. Did you just see Dr. Olaf in the neurology department? No. Ania remained determined to keep her illness from her daughter. After hanging up, she immediately called Olaf. Dr. Olaf? Yes, this is Olaf. My daughter works at the hospital too. If she asks you about me, please don't tell her anything. I don't want her to know yet. But she's your daughter, Olaf replied. I'll tell her myself when the time is right. Please help me keep this from her, all right? Thank you, doctor. Before ending the call, Olaf asked one more question. What's your daughter's name? Cadence. Olaf was surprised. It was the same name as his girlfriend. After asking Ania a few more questions, he realized she really was Cadence's mother. The coincidence left him speechless. After the call ended, Olaf sat down at his desk, his thoughts in complete disorder. Why did it have to be Cadence's mother? Why had someone so young developed Alzheimer's? And what would Cadence do when she eventually learned the truth? As a neurologist, Olaf understood exactly how devastating the disease could become. His own grandmother had suffered from Alzheimer's after turning 70. For 10 years, she remembered almost nothing. She constantly accused his mother of refusing to feed her or take care of her. Olaf's mother had endured all of it. Even after his grandmother passed away, those years remained painful memories for the family. One day, Cadence's mother might become the same way. She might not remember anyone anymore. She might not even remember her own name. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, Olaf said. The door opened and Amari walked into the office. Mom? What are you doing here? Olaf asked in surprise. I was nearby, so I thought I'd stop in and see where you work, Amari replied. Oh, and I just ran into Cadence outside. You two have been together for quite a while now. It's about time both families met. I'd like to know what her parents are like. Olaf smiled faintly. Does that really matter? As long as Cadence and I love each other, isn't that enough? Of course it matters, Amari replied. If her parents are good people and they're healthy, you won't have so many burdens after you get married. I've worked hard my whole life. I want my son to have an easy life. I don't want you carrying the burden of a sick wife or sick in-laws. Olaf understood exactly what his mother was worried about. He quickly changed the subject and told her he still had work to do. Realizing that her son was politely asking her to leave, Amari stood up and walked out. After she was gone, Olaf looked at Ania's medical file once again. The mother of the woman he loved was seriously ill. The thought weighed heavily on him. After leaving the hospital, Ania went straight to Kyra's apartment. She knew she didn't have much time left, so she wanted Kyra to move back home. She wanted to spend whatever time remained with both of her daughters. She unlocked the apartment door, but Kyra wasn't there. Looking around the room, Ania saw clothes and personal belongings scattered all over the floor. The apartment looked like a complete mess. She pulled a suitcase out from under the bed, sat down on the floor, called Kyra, and quietly began folding her clothes into it. A short while later, Kyra returned. The first thing she saw was her mother packing her belongings. She walked over, sat down across from Ania, shoved the suitcase aside, and said angrily, "What are you doing? I'm not moving back home." "Come home with me," Ania said softly. You can't keep living like this. I'm not going back. You used to tell me I could live however I wanted. That was before, Ania replied. Things are different now. I want you to come home. Kyra let out a cold laugh. You never cared before. Why do you suddenly care now? You already have Cadence. She's smart, she's obedient, and she has every quality you've ever wanted in a daughter. You love her so much, so what do you need me for? Ania looked at her in surprise. Why would you think that? Why would you say something like that? Isn't it true? Kyra shot back. You left me at Grandma's house all the time. If Grandma hadn't gotten sick, you never would have come to bring me home. I used to think she was my real mother. Do you know that? Kyra shouted through tears. Kyra, you told me it was because you lost the baby and fell into depression, so you couldn't take care of me. That's true. Then why didn't you bring me home after you got better? Kyra demanded. Because I was raising both you and your sister by myself. Your father was busy with school, and your grandmother never helped me. That's why I let you stay with Grandma a while longer. Kyra shook her head. There you go again. You're always making excuses for everything you've done. You said you couldn't take care of both of us. Then why was I the one who had to stay with Grandma? Why wasn't it Cadence? Because you were younger. If Cadence had moved to Grandma's house, she would have had to transfer to a different school. That would have been much harder, Ania explained. She tried everything she could to help her daughter understand that it wasn't because she didn't love her. It was simply the circumstances they had been living through. But Kyra refused to understand. She had always believed her mother loved Cadence more than she loved her. Stop lying, Kyra said. You never loved me. I wasn't the daughter you wanted, so you pushed me away. If I'd been as obedient and successful as Cadence, maybe you would have treated me differently. Do you know what I went through after you finally brought me home? A new school, new teachers, new classmates. Everything was unfamiliar. It was overwhelming. I needed my mom more than anything back then. But where were you? Did you ever ask me how I felt about going to a new school with people I didn't know? Or did you just leave me with tutors? The only thing you ever did was hire tutors so I could pass my exams and get good grades. Did you really think that was what I needed? Did you ever stop to ask what I actually wanted? Everything I did was for you, Ania replied quietly. I wanted you to have a better life. Enough, Kyra interrupted. Just be honest. You're angry because I never became the daughter you wanted. Stop pretending. Hearing those words, Ania was stunned. She had explained so many times that she didn't love one daughter more than the other, but Kyra refused to believe her. Frustrated by her youngest daughter's stubbornness, Ania finally raised her voice. Why are you like this? Why do you have to be so stubborn? You're the one who's destroying your own future. Don't you understand? Destroying my future? Kyra fired back. You think I'm destroying my life? No, Mom. I'm choosing my own life. I'll never become a doctor like Cadence just because that's what you want. Go back to the way you used to be. Stop worrying about me. It feels strange having you suddenly care about me. I don't even understand why you've changed like this. After saying that, Kyra walked into the bathroom, leaving Ania sitting motionless on the floor beside the pile of clothes. Sitting alone after Kyra walked away, Ania kept thinking about everything her daughter had said. Maybe Kyra was right. The way she had suddenly started caring so much did seem strange. Ever since Kyra was little, she had been stubborn and constantly argued with her. Life had been difficult, and because Ania had spent a long time receiving treatment for depression, she had sent Kyra to live with her grandmother. Kyra grew up surrounded by her grandmother's love, but without the care of her parents. She had always believed her mother didn't want her and had deliberately left her there. Later, when Kyra was in the 9th grade, her grandmother became ill, so Ania brought her home. From that moment on, Kyra began rebelling against everything she did. No matter what Ania tried to do for her, Kyra was never satisfied. Ania always believed Kyra was simply a difficult child who refused to listen, so she scolded her far more often than she did Cadence. Cadence received more attention because she was obedient and always did what her mother asked. The lack of communication between Ania and Kyra only pushed them farther apart. Kyra rarely talked to her mother or shared what she was feeling. Ania also kept forcing her own expectations onto her daughter. She wanted Kyra to attend medical school just like Cadence without ever asking whether Kyra wanted that life. Cadence willingly followed her mother's wishes, but Kyra had a strong personality. When Ania insisted that she apply to medical school, Kyra refused and enrolled in an arts college instead. 3 years ago, she moved out and had been living on her own ever since. During those 3 years, Kyra rarely came home because she didn't like being there. Ania had simply let her live that way because she believed there was no point trying to persuade a daughter who never listened. But now everything was different. She couldn't leave Kyra alone anymore. She didn't have much time left with her daughters. She wanted Kyra to come home. She wanted to take care of her before the day came when she could no longer recognize her. Instead, Ania's sudden concern only made Kyra feel that something was wrong. Kyra picked up her phone and called Damien. She asked whether her mother had been acting strangely lately and why she had suddenly shown up insisting that she move back home. Listening to Kyra, Ania realized that if she kept hiding her illness, Kyra would never agree to come home. "Come home for dinner tonight," Ania said quietly. "I have something important to tell you." "What are you planning this time? Are you trying to trick me into coming home again?" "I don't have much time left, Kyra. Please come home tonight and bring your clothes with you." Ania wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes, picked up her purse, and quietly left the apartment. Kyra stood there watching her mother's back as she walked away. She couldn't understand why her mother had changed so suddenly. That evening, even though she still felt uncomfortable and had no desire to go home, Kyra returned. After dinner, the whole family gathered in the living room. Ania took a deep breath before speaking. "I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and it's progressing very quickly." Damien, Cadence, and Kyra stared at her in shock. None of them could believe what they had just heard. The room fell completely silent. After several long minutes, Kyra turned to Damien with a cold look. "Dad, how could you not know Mom was sick?" Her voice sounded more like an accusation than a question. Damien raised his voice immediately. "How was I supposed to know if she never told me? You're the one living with her. You should have noticed something was wrong." Kyra turned toward her sister. "And you're a doctor. How could you not realize your own mother was sick?" "Enough," Cadence snapped. "Look at yourself first. What have you ever done besides causing problems? If you really cared about Mom, why didn't you come home sooner?" Before the argument could go any further, Ania suddenly shouted, "That's enough!" She turned around and walked straight into her bedroom, leaving Damien and the 2 daughters sitting in silence in the living room. After sitting in silence for a while, Damien picked up his phone and called his mother. Then he turned to Cadence. "You're a doctor. Is there any treatment for your mom?" Cadence shook her head. "The only thing doctors can do is slow the progression of the disease. I've already spoken with Dr. Olaf. He said he'll do everything he can." A few moments later, someone knocked on the front door. "Cadence, go answer it. Your grandmother's here," Damien said. "Grandma? Why is she here this late?" "I called her. She needs to know about this too." Damien let out a long sigh and ran his hand through his hair. Out of all the illnesses in the world, why did it have to be this one? As soon as Latifah sat down, she said coldly, "What else is there to discuss? Put her in a nursing home." "Mom, how can you say that?" Damien asked. "She's still perfectly normal." "Normal?" Latifah scoffed. "One day she won't know the difference between food and human waste. She'll relieve herself all over the house." "Grandma, that's enough!" Kyra shouted angrily. She knew her grandmother had never liked her mother, but she couldn't accept hearing her speak that way. "If you say one more bad thing about my mom, I'll make you leave." "You." Furious, Latifah jumped to her feet and raised her hand as if she were about to slap Kyra. "Mom, stop it," Damien shouted. "Can't you see this family already has enough to deal with?" Latifah glared at him. "So now you're saying I'm the one causing trouble? Tell me then, what are you planning to do? Have you thought about what happens if she wanders off and gets into an accident? What if she disappears one day? Wouldn't it be better to let her stay in a nursing home than have her wandering the streets until something terrible happens?" Although Latifah's words sounded cold and heartless, they forced Damien and his daughters to face a reality none of them wanted to think about. Damien looked at Kyra. "Kyra, I want you to move back home and stay with your mom." "Why me?" Kyra asked immediately. "Because you're the only one with enough free time. Your sister is busy at the hospital. I have work too. I have my band." Cadence looked at her. "You call that a job? Stop looking down on me," Kyra snapped. "Your work is a job, and mine is too. Just because it's different doesn't make it any less important." The two sisters began arguing again, leaving Damien rubbing his forehead in frustration. Latifah still insisted that Ania should be sent to a nursing home before she embarrassed the family or damaged Damien's reputation. The truth was, Latifah wasn't the only one worried about that. Deep down, Damien had the same fear. He worried that if his colleagues, students, or friends learned his wife had Alzheimer's disease, they would laugh at him behind his back. Even so, Ania was still thinking clearly, and he didn't dare send her to a nursing home. He was afraid people would criticize him for abandoning his wife while she was still able to take care of herself. Unlike the rest of her family, Ania felt as though a heavy weight had finally been lifted after telling everyone about her illness. She no longer carried the fear and anxiety she had been hiding inside. Instead, she chose to face the disease with a smile. She continued going to Ania's chicken every day. Whenever she forgot something, her employees stepped in to help. Her friends were always there to encourage and comfort her. Ania promised herself that she would spend whatever time she had left living happily with her daughters and the people she cared about. After word spread that she had Alzheimer's disease, her friends and coworkers all came to encourage her. Everyone who saw her told her to stay strong and continue following the doctor's treatment so the disease would progress as slowly as possible. Every time she heard those words, Ania smiled, thanked them sincerely, and quietly reminded herself to do everything she could to stay clear-minded for as long as possible. Since Latifah couldn't convince Damien to send Ania to a nursing home, she decided to move into their house instead. She claimed she was there to help take care of her daughter-in-law, but Ania knew the real reason. Latifah wanted to keep an eye on her because she didn't want a daughter-in-law with Alzheimer's doing anything that might damage her precious son's reputation. Ania understood exactly why her mother-in-law had moved in, but it no longer bothered her. She wasn't afraid of Latifah anymore. If Latifah continued treating her badly, she was ready to stand up for herself. What made Ania happiest was that Kyra had officially moved back home. Her daughter might have been stubborn, but she also had a warm heart. When Damien first asked Kyra to stay home and take care of her mother, she had refused. But after returning to her apartment, she couldn't stop worrying. She was afraid her mother would feel lonely. She was afraid Ania would forget the way home. She was afraid that constantly worrying would only make her illness worse. Those thoughts stayed with her until she could no longer ignore them. In the end, Kyra decided to move back home. Even though she told Ania it was only temporary, Ania knew that wasn't the truth. Ever since Kyra learned about her illness, all she wanted was to stay close to her mother and take care of her. Knowing that filled Ania with happiness. The next morning, after Ania finished preparing breakfast for the family, she started doing the laundry. As she was about to put away the clean clothes, she noticed that Cadence's white lab coat was badly wrinkled. She decided to iron it so Cadence could wear it to work later. After finishing, she hung it on a hanger. A little while later, Ania was watching television in the living room when Cadence walked out holding the lab coat in her hands. She sounded upset. "Mom, what happened to my coat?" Ania looked at her in confusion before taking the coat. There was a small burned hole in the fabric. "I'm sorry, I accidentally burned it. But it's only a tiny hole. It shouldn't be a big problem." Cadence sighed. "Mom, I've already told you that you're not well. You shouldn't keep trying to do things like this. I just wanted to help you girls." "I'm not upset because you burned my coat," Cadence replied. "I'm worried something worse could happen. What if you forget the iron is still on and start a fire? That's why I'm asking you not to do these things anymore. The best way you can help us right now is by not doing anything that might put you in danger." After saying that, Cadence hurried off to work. Ania remained alone in the living room, quietly holding the damaged lab coat in her hands. She knew Cadence had only said those things because she was worried about her. Even so, she couldn't stop herself from feeling sad. She didn't want to become someone who was useless while she was still able to think clearly. Working had always been the way she showed her love for her family. "I'll just be more careful," she whispered to herself. "Then the girls won't have to worry about me anymore." Holding the lab coat, Ania slowly stood up and walked back to her bedroom. Later that afternoon, while Ania and Kyra were preparing dinner together, Ania received a call from Cadence. Cadence told her that Olaf's mother wanted to meet her that weekend. The moment she heard that, Ania's face lit up with happiness. She had known for quite some time that Cadence was dating a doctor from the same hospital, but every time she asked about him, Cadence avoided the subject and had never once brought him home to meet the family. Now that she was ill, Ania hoped that if Cadence truly loved someone, they could get married soon so she could stop worrying about her oldest daughter. "His mother wants to meet me? That's wonderful," Ania said with a smile. To her, that meant the relationship was becoming serious. She finally felt she could be at peace about Cadence's future. Ania knew her daughter wasn't especially beautiful, but she had always been an outstanding student. Finding a good husband had never really been the difficult part. The real challenge was that Cadence's demanding job kept her busy all the time. It wasn't easy for her to find someone who truly understood her and accepted the life she lived. If the meeting with Olaf's mother went well, Ania planned to let the two of them move forward with the wedding as soon as possible. She wanted to see her daughter get married while she was still clear-minded and able to remember every precious moment. At the neurology department where Olaf and Cadence worked, Amari was sitting in the hallway waiting for her son to finish work. While she was waiting, she overheard two receptionists talking about Cadence's mother. They were discussing the fact that the mother of Dr. Cadence, who was also Dr. Olaf's girlfriend, had Alzheimer's disease. The moment Amari heard that, anger rushed over her. She immediately stormed into Olaf's office. "You already knew your girlfriend's mother has Alzheimer's, didn't you?" she demanded. "Yes," Olaf answered. "Is there a problem?" "A problem? You knew her mother has Alzheimer's and you're still dating her? Break up with her. I will never agree to let you marry the daughter of someone with dementia." "Mom, what's wrong with you?" "Just because Cadence's mother is sick doesn't mean anything." "How can you say it doesn't?" Amari replied sharply. "Did you forget your grandmother? She lived with Alzheimer's for 10 years. Those 10 years were a nightmare for this family. Cadence's mother will become the same way. Cadence will spend the rest of her life taking care of her. She won't have time to take care of you or your future family. You'll end up supporting both of them. I don't want that." Olaf frowned. "I don't understand why you're thinking like this. You of all people should understand what Cadence is going through. You watched Grandma suffer from this disease. You should feel sympathy for her mother instead of treating her this way." "I'm not being unreasonable," Amari replied firmly. "I said I won't agree, and that's final. Break up with her. She doesn't really love you. She knows our family has money, so she's holding on to you. Tomorrow, I'll meet her mother myself and make everything clear." Without waiting for Olaf to answer, Amari turned around and walked out of the office. Olaf remained standing there in silence. He loved Cadence and wanted to marry her. He knew Ania's illness would be difficult for both of them, but as a doctor, he understood better than anyone how much people with Alzheimer's suffered. That was exactly why he sympathized with both Cadence and her mother. His own grandmother had lived with the disease for 10 years. During all those years, his mother had stayed home to care for her. It had been exhausting, but Olaf had always believed that experience would make his mother more compassionate toward families facing the same situation. He never imagined she would react with such prejudice after learning that Cadence's mother had Alzheimer's. He was deeply disappointed in her. At the same time, he couldn't think of any way to change her mind because he knew how stubborn she was. The following afternoon, Ania met Amari at a small restaurant in the city. The moment they sat down, Amari bluntly stated that she would never allow Cadence to marry her son. Ania looked at her and pleaded, "Please, I hope you'll reconsider. Cadence is a kind and thoughtful girl. I'm certain she'll be a good wife and a good daughter-in-law." Seeing that Amari had no intention of changing her mind, Ania lowered herself even further. For her daughter's happiness, she was willing to do anything, even if it meant begging another mother to accept Cadence. "I have nothing against Cadence," Amari replied. "The reason I object is because of you. You have Alzheimer's disease. Whether you like hearing it or not, I'm going to tell you the truth. People with Alzheimer's leave deep emotional scars on everyone around them. One day, you'll forget everything. Your daughter will have to stay by your side and take care of you. She'll spend her life living with your illness. My son will have to carry that burden too. I don't want that." "I understand what you're worried about," Ania said quietly. "But please, think about the children. They truly love each other. The one marrying your son is Cadence, not me. You don't have to worry about me affecting their marriage." Amari shook her head. "You're making it sound far too simple. I'll never accept this. You and your daughter should give up." "Please," Ania begged again. "You're a mother too. I'm sure you understand how I feel. Every parent wants to see their child happy. If you agree to let Olaf marry Cadence, I promise I'll cut off all contact with my daughter. I won't let my illness affect their lives." As she spoke, Ania slowly dropped to her knees in front of Amari. She truly couldn't accept the reason she was being rejected. Ever since learning she had Alzheimer's, she had fallen into despair. It had taken every bit of strength she had to accept the disease and learn to live with it. She had finally begun smiling again and cherishing the time she still had with her family. But now she was being told that because of her illness, her daughter wasn't worthy of becoming someone's wife. The thought filled her with unbearable guilt. She felt as though she had ruined Cadence's future. Amari remained unmoved. "Stand up," she said coldly. "I'll never agree to this. People with Alzheimer's are better off dying sooner. It would be kinder to everyone around them." "Shut up!" a furious voice shouted from behind her. "Shut up!" Cadence shouted as she rushed over. She couldn't stand hearing Amari insult her mother any longer. Earlier, after Ania left to meet Amari, Olaf had gone to find Cadence. He told her that his mother had gone to see Ania to stop the two of them from getting married. When Cadence asked why, Olaf admitted that his mother had learned about Ania's Alzheimer's disease. The moment Cadence heard that, she realized how calculating and heartless Amari truly was. Amari was the mother of a doctor. She had personally spent years caring for someone with Alzheimer's, yet instead of showing compassion, she chose to look down on another family facing the same pain. At that moment, Cadence lost all desire to become Amari's daughter-in-law. She turned to Olaf. "Go home. Your mother looks down on my mom because she's sick. There's no future for us anymore." "But I love you," Olaf said. "We do love each other," Cadence replied. "But can you change your mother's mind? Can you go against her and still marry me?" Olaf lowered his head. He couldn't answer. "That's what I thought," Cadence continued. "Let's end this." "No," Olaf said firmly. "I love you, and you're the only woman I'll ever marry." Cadence looked him straight in the eyes. "If you really want to marry me, then tell your mother to come and beg my mom for permission to let me marry you. If she does that, I'll say yes. Otherwise, even if I stay single for the rest of my life, I'll never set foot in your house." Without waiting for his response, Cadence ran toward her mother. She had known Ania would beg Amari because she loved her daughter too much. She didn't want that to happen. Her mother had done nothing wrong. She should never have to kneel before anyone because she was sick. "Mom, get up," Cadence said as she quickly helped Ania to her feet. "You didn't do anything wrong. She has no right to make you kneel and beg like this. I didn't fall in love with her son. He was the one who chased after me first. I don't even want him anymore. Someone like her doesn't deserve to have a daughter-in-law like me." Amari's face turned red with anger. She had never expected Cadence to turn against her so quickly. You, she stammered. "What a disrespectful girl." Cadence looked at her without flinching. "You think I'm disrespectful? My parents raised me to respect and care about other people. I'm nothing like someone who's selfish and only thinks about herself." Furious, Amari lunged toward Cadence and raised her hand to slap her. Before she could, Olaf rushed over and grabbed his mother's wrist. He watched silently as Cadence helped Ania out of the restaurant. After Cadence brought her mother home, Ania couldn't stop blaming herself. She kept saying she had ruined her daughter's happiness. She apologized to Cadence again and again. Seeing their mother in so much pain, Cadence and Kyra took turns comforting her. Cadence told Ania she had never wanted to marry into a family like Olaf's. Even if Ania had never become ill, she still wouldn't have accepted a mother-in-law who treated people that way. Kyra agreed. "Mom, this wasn't your fault. You didn't ruin anyone's happiness. You helped us see who they really are before it was too late." With both daughters encouraging her, Ania slowly let go of the guilt she had been carrying. Little by little, she smiled again. Kyra had moved back home to take care of her mother, but she was still performing with her band, so she often had to go out for rehearsals and shows. One afternoon, Ania was cooking lunch. She put a pot of braised fish on the stove, then walked outside to hang the laundry. While she was busy, she completely forgot about the fish. By the time Kyra came home, thick black smoke was pouring out of the kitchen. She ran inside, quickly turned off the stove, shut off the gas, and called for her mother. When Ania realized she had forgotten the pot on the stove and had nearly started a fire, the entire family became deeply worried. Damien finally accepted that it was no longer safe to let her handle the housework. He decided they needed to hire a housekeeper to take care of the cooking and cleaning instead of letting Ania do those things herself. The very next day, a woman around Ania's age was hired to work as the family's housekeeper. But Ania clearly wasn't comfortable having a stranger living in her home, even if the woman was there to help with the housework. No matter what the housekeeper did, Ania always found a way to interfere. After the woman finished washing the clothes, Ania deliberately scattered dirt all over them again. When she cooked soup, Ania secretly added a large amount of chili peppers. When she prepared braised meat, Ania poured vinegar into the pot. Then, when Damien and the girls came home, Ania blamed the housekeeper and complained about everything she had done. Every housekeeper who came to work lasted only 3 days before quitting. None of them could tolerate Ania constantly picking fights with them. One after another, they all resigned, leaving the family increasingly worried. The only person who felt relieved was Ania herself. She behaved that way on purpose because she wanted her family to take turns staying home with her instead of leaving her alone with a housekeeper. If the housekeeper stayed, everyone else would leave the house every day, and no one would spend time with her anymore. She couldn't bear that thought. What Ania was doing seemed unreasonable, but in her situation, it was the only way she knew to keep the people she loved close to her. She wanted to spend the last days of her clear mind with her family because she was afraid that one day they would leave the house in the morning, and by the time they came home, she wouldn't recognize any of them. While the family struggled to keep a housekeeper, the person who was most upset was Latifa. She had to do more housework herself, and she constantly worried that Ania would create problems that might affect the family, especially her precious son. That evening, after dinner, everyone was eating fruit together when Latifa brought up the nursing home again. "I've already told you," she said to Damien. "No housekeeper is willing to stay because of her. She's turned this house upside down. You need to send her to a nursing home. Everyone will finally have some peace. She almost burned the house down before. Who knows what she'll do next?" "Mom, enough," Damien replied. "What's wrong with a nursing home?" Latifa argued. "The care is excellent. Everyone would feel much safer if she lived there. If it's so wonderful, then why don't you move in there?" Kyra snapped. She was tired of hearing her grandmother talk about sending her mother away. "What did you just say?" Latifa shouted. "How dare you speak to me like that? You started talking about my mom first." Damien shot Kyra a warning look. Kyra. Furious, Kyra stood up and stormed back to her room. Latifa watched her leave and muttered, "Like mother. Like daughter. Her mother has no manners, so of course she couldn't raise a respectful daughter." Cadence looked at her grandmother and said calmly, "Grandma, that's enough. Please worry about your own life. We'll take care of Mom ourselves. You don't need to interfere." Seeing both granddaughters defending Ania, Latifa became so angry that she stood up and walked away without saying another word. Ania had listened to everything her mother-in-law said that evening. She was furious inside. Ever since she became ill, Latifa had moved into the house, yet instead of helping her, she spent every day trying to send her to a nursing home. "Fine," Ania thought. "Starting tomorrow, I'll show you what I'm capable of." The next day, Ania stayed home. She was feeling fairly clear-headed, but she deliberately didn't cook dinner. That evening, after Latifa came home from going out, she assumed Ania had already prepared the meal, so she didn't bother going into the kitchen. Instead, she took a shower and sat down to watch television while waiting for Damien to come home so they could eat together. When Damien finally arrived, Ania walked out of her room. She looked at her mother-in-law sitting comfortably in front of the TV, deliberately slammed a bowl and a fork onto the dining table, and shouted, "Why didn't you cook dinner?" The sudden outburst startled both Latifa and Damien. They stared at Ania in disbelief. "What did you just say?" Latifa demanded. "Have you lost your mind? How dare you talk to your mother-in-law like that?" "Why should I cook?" Ania shot back. "You stay home all day without doing anything, yet you can't even make dinner?" "You stay home too," Latifa snapped. "I stay home, but I make money," Ania replied. "What do you do besides going out and enjoying yourself? Starting tomorrow, you're cooking and cleaning this house." After saying that, Ania turned around and walked away, leaving Latifa standing there, breathing heavily. She had never experienced anything like this in her entire life. She had never heard of a daughter-in-law yelling at her mother-in-law and ordering her to cook. "Oh, my God," Latifa muttered as she held her chest. Damien stood there just as stunned. Never once had he seen his wife behave this way. No matter how harshly his mother treated her, Ania had always stayed quiet. Yet today, she had actually shouted back. He couldn't help thinking that perhaps Alzheimer's had made her forget that Latifah was someone she had always feared. Later that day, Ania met Ada and Renee at a coffee shop. The moment she told them she had yelled at her mother-in-law, both women burst into laughter. Ada laughed so hard she could barely catch her breath. "You really yelled. Why didn't you cook dinner? I wish I could have seen Latifah's face. She must have been completely stunned." Ania smiled. "I didn't mean to yell at her. It just slipped out. But after I did, it actually felt great." "She deserved it," Ada said. "She's been yelling at you for years. Now it's finally her turn. I bet she almost had a heart attack." Renee grinned and leaned closer. "Why don't you use your illness to teach her a lesson? Just pretend you forgot everything and stop doing any housework. Make her do it all. That'll feel even better." Ania laughed. "That's actually a great idea. All right, I'll give it a try." It's time she learned what respect looks like after trying to send me to a nursing home. From that day on, Ania stopped doing any housework. She left clothes, dishes, and other things scattered all over the house. She didn't even bother buying groceries anymore. Whenever Latifah came home after going out, she would look around at the mess and groan, "What happened to this house? This place is a mess. It's such a disaster. Where did she go? How could she leave everything like this? There are leftovers everywhere. Flies are going to fill this place. And why is the refrigerator completely empty?" Just then, Ania walked out after hearing her mother-in-law complaining. "Mom, I'm starving. Please make me some noodles for breakfast." Latifah glared at her. "What did you just say? Do you even know what time it is? It's 8 o'clock in the morning, isn't it?" Ania asked innocently. "Have you completely lost your mind?" Latifah snapped. "It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It'll be time to make dinner soon." Ania looked surprised. "It's already 1 in the afternoon? I don't remember anything. Then please make dinner for me. I'm so hungry." She held her stomach and sat down in the kitchen, waiting for Latifah to cook. At first, Latifah was furious. But after realizing Ania genuinely couldn't remember what time it was, she assumed the illness was getting worse. With no other choice, she went into the kitchen and cooked a bowl of noodles. Ania took one bite, immediately spit it back onto the table, and frowned. "Why is it so salty? I can't eat this." Annoyed, Latifah picked up a fork and tasted the noodles herself and said, "It's perfectly fine. What are you talking about? It's too salty," Ania insisted. She stood up and walked away without touching another bite. Left alone in the kitchen, Latifah grumbled under her breath while cleaning everything up. She had planned to leave the mess there, but if she didn't clean it, the house really would become a pigsty. "What terrible luck," she muttered. "I'm old, and now I have to wait on my own daughter-in-law." A few days later, Ania asked Ada to go with her to meet an attorney and prepare her will. After they finished discussing everything, the attorney handed the completed documents to Ania. On the way home, the two women stopped at a small cafe. As they sat there, Ada looked at Ania and asked, "Don't you think it's a little too early to make a will?" Ania let out a quiet sigh. "I don't think so. Right now, I'm still clear-minded. I can pretend to be forgetful around my mother-in-law. But I'm afraid that one day I'll truly forget everything, and I have no idea when that day will come. I think it's better to prepare my will now, before I lose the ability to make these decisions." After she finished speaking, both women fell silent. They understood exactly what the other was thinking, and both were afraid of the future. But there was nothing either of them could do. The most painful part was that, sooner or later, the day they feared would eventually arrive. No miracle had ever cured Alzheimer's disease. After saying goodbye to Ada, Ania returned home and went to put the will away in a cabinet. As she opened it, she suddenly remembered her wallet. She searched through the cabinet but couldn't find it anywhere. Ania immediately rushed outside and shouted at Latifah, "Hey, old lady, have you seen my wallet?" Latifah had been dozing on the couch. She jerked awake, stared at Ania, and shouted back, "Have you lost your mind? How dare you talk to me like that?" Ignoring her anger, Ania pointed straight at her. "There's only one old woman living in this house besides me. If you didn't take it, then who did? You've really gone crazy." Latifah snapped. "You don't even recognize who I am anymore. Now you're accusing me of being a thief? Give me my money back!" Ania shouted. She grabbed Latifah by the arms and began searching through every pocket in her clothes. Latifah struggled furiously, trying to push her away. Just then, Damien walked through the front door. He rushed over, pulled Ania back, and held her arms. "Calm down. Tell me what happened." Ania glared at Latifah and said angrily, "That old woman stole my money. I knew this day would come." Latifah cried out. "I told you to send her to a nursing home, but you wouldn't listen." Damien looked at his wife and immediately realized what had happened. He gently led her away from his mother and held her shoulders. "Ania, calm down. Why would my mom steal your money?" After a long while, Ania gradually settled down. She lowered her head and became quiet. It seemed she had no memory of what had just happened. She hadn't been pretending. This time, she had truly lost control because of her illness. The realization frightened her. She really was beginning to lose her memories. Furious after being accused of stealing by her own daughter-in-law, Latifah became even more determined to send Ania to a nursing home. The very next day, Latifah contacted a nursing home and told them she wanted to admit an elderly woman. A few days later, the nursing home called back. They told her everything had been arranged and asked her to bring Ania in. Latifah then lied to Ania, saying that Damien had invited both of them to spend the day at a nearby hot springs resort. That morning, after Damien had already left for work, Latifah walked into Ania's room and urged her to hurry. "Come on, we're going to miss the bus." "Why aren't we driving ourselves?" Ania asked. "How could we?" Latifah replied. "Why don't we wait for Damien to come home so we can all go together?" "He's busy. He told us to go ahead first. He'll come after his classes are over around noon." Hearing that, Ania sat down in front of the mirror and slowly brushed her hair. As she looked at the calendar, she noticed that the day after tomorrow was circled. It was their wedding anniversary. A smile spread across her face. She thought Damien must have planned this trip to celebrate their anniversary together. Without the slightest suspicion, Ania stood up, picked up her bag, and left with her mother-in-law. They boarded a long-distance bus heading toward the nursing home. Around 11 that morning, Kyra returned from Ania's chicken. The house was empty. On the dining table, she found a note that read, "Your dad, your grandma, and I went on a trip." "A trip?" Kyra murmured. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" More than a month earlier, Ania had turned over the restaurant's management to Kyra. Even though the restaurant had a full staff, Kyra still stopped by every day to keep an eye on the business because she had only recently taken over. Today was no different. She tossed the note aside, sat down, and picked up an apple. As she was taking a bite, her eyes landed on a brochure lying on the table. It was an advertisement for a nursing home. Kyra picked it up and quickly looked through it. At first, she assumed her grandmother was still looking for information because she wanted to send Ania there. But the more she thought about it, the more uneasy she became. She immediately called Damien. At that moment, Damien was having lunch at a restaurant with Brianna. "Hello? Dad, where are you?" "I'm at the university." "The university? I thought you were traveling with Mom and Grandma." "Traveling? Nobody's home. Mom left a note saying the three of you went on a trip. I also found a nursing home brochure. Do you think Grandma took Mom there?" The moment Damien heard those words, his face changed. "All right, let me call your grandma." As soon as he ended the call, Damien immediately called both Latifah and Ania. Neither of them answered. Latifah had deliberately put her phone on silent. The more Damien called, the more anxious he became. He couldn't sit still. Brianna looked at him with an annoyed expression. "Isn't this supposed to be our date? Just be quiet. I'm worried sick right now. You yelled at me?" Brianna snapped. "We're out together, and all you do is call your old wife and your daughter." "Fine. Stay here and worry about your family. Don't bother with me anymore." She stood up and stormed out of the restaurant. Damien watched her leave with a tired look but didn't go after her. Meanwhile, at a highway bus stop, the bus carrying Ania and Latifah pulled over for a short break. The passengers got off to use the restrooms. Latifah didn't need to go, so she stayed on the bus. Ania got off by herself, leaving her purse on her seat. After using the restroom, Ania walked back outside. She looked around and saw buses parked everywhere. She couldn't remember which one she had arrived on. Instead of asking for help, She kept walking until she climbed onto a different bus. A few minutes later, after all the passengers had boarded, the driver looked around and asked, "Is everyone back?" Only then did Latifah realize Ania wasn't on the bus. "My daughter-in-law is still outside," she shouted. She reached for her phone to call Ania, but then noticed Ania's purse was still on the seat. She hurried off the bus to look for her. Before leaving, she told the driver, "Please wait a minute. I'm going to find my daughter-in-law." At that exact moment, about 100 yards away, Ania's bus pulled out and drove away. Latifah searched all around the bus station but couldn't find her. A terrible thought crossed her mind. Ania must have forgotten which bus she came on and gotten onto another one. Panicking, Latifah grabbed Ania's purse from the bus and told the driver she wasn't leaving after all. She immediately took out her phone and called Damien. "What did you say?" Damien shouted. "Ania is missing? She's gone. I don't know where she went. Maybe she forgot which bus was ours and got onto another one. She got off to use the restroom and never came back." Hearing that, Damien exploded. "You knew she has Alzheimer's! Why did you let her go off by herself? Where did you take her?" I was taking her on a trip. I didn't mean for this to happen. I've been looking for her for over an hour." "Where are you? I'll come get you, and we'll report her missing. I'll find my own way home. But where are you?" Latifah refused to tell him where she was. She was afraid that if Damien came, he would discover she had been taking Ania to a nursing home. Secretly, she even considered Ania's disappearance a stroke of luck because it meant Ania was no longer at home. Damien became even angrier when his mother refused to tell him her location. Even though she insisted Ania had simply wandered off because of her illness, Kyra's phone call had already made him suspect the truth. He was convinced his mother had tried to take Ania to a nursing home. He warned Latifah that if she didn't tell him the truth and reveal where she was, he would call the police. Finally, Latifah admitted everything. Ever since Ania became ill, she had repeatedly urged Damien to send her to a nursing home, but he had refused. Ania was still clear-minded most of the time, and despite everything that had happened between them, he couldn't bear the thought of leaving her there alone. They had built their life together from nothing. Although he often agreed with his mother's criticism of Ania, deep inside, he knew that everything he had achieved was because of her. She had dropped out of college to have their children. She had supported the family financially and raised their daughters so he could continue his education and become the man he was today. Now that she was sick, he knew he had a responsibility to stand by her. He admitted that he had betrayed her, but if he had to choose between Ania and any younger, more beautiful woman, he would still choose Ania. In his heart, she had always been the most important person. Damien immediately called the police and asked for help finding his wife. He also called Cadence so the whole family could split up and search for Ania. As soon as Cadence got the call, Olaf, who happened to be with her, saw how panicked she looked and immediately went with her to help search. About an hour after Ania had boarded the wrong bus, she realized she wasn't on the right one. Although she was frightened, she forced herself to stay calm so she could think clearly. She told the driver that she had gotten on the wrong bus and asked to be let off. After getting off, Ania hailed a taxi and asked the driver to take her to the hot springs. It was the only destination she could remember. Every year on their wedding anniversary, she and Damien always went there together. Their anniversary was only a few days away, and she believed Damien was waiting for her there. Meanwhile, Damien searched everywhere for Ania. He and his daughters also posted her information on social media, asking the public for help. Damien drove from one bus station to another and checked bus terminals all across the city, but there was still no sign of her. Olaf searched one area while Cadence and Kyra searched another. Cadence drove through the roads their mother often traveled, hoping to find her. As evening approached, Kyra became more and more anxious. "Cadence, what if we can't find Mom?" she asked fearfully. "We will," Cadence replied. "Mom hasn't completely lost her memory. There are still times when she's perfectly clear, but it's almost been an entire day. She hasn't called any of us. I'm so scared. If we can't find Mom, I don't think I'll be able to live with myself. There are still so many things I want to tell her, so many things I still want to do for her." Tears filled Kyra's eyes, and her body shook with fear. Seeing her younger sister like that, Cadence immediately tried to comfort her. "Don't be silly. We'll find Mom. We already posted her picture online. Someone will recognize her and contact us. Just believe that." "Really? Do you really think we'll find her?" Kyra asked. "Yes," Cadence answered, even though she was just as worried. She knew she had to stay strong. Right now, Kyra needed someone she could lean on. If she broke down too, her sister would lose all hope. So she held back her tears and kept driving. At that same moment, Damien was searching another bus station about 20 miles from home when he received a call from an unfamiliar number. The caller said they had seen Ania near the hot springs. Damien immediately drove to the hot springs. When he arrived, he saw Ania sitting outside the entrance of a hotel. She had no money and no identification with her, so the hotel staff refused to let her inside. Night had already fallen, and 2 security guards assumed she was causing trouble. No matter how desperately she begged them, they insisted on making her leave. Just as the guards pushed Ania away from the entrance, Damien ran over. "Ania!" The moment she saw him, Ania burst into tears. She ran straight into his arms and cried like a frightened child. "Why did you come here?" Damien asked as he held her tightly. "I thought you were waiting for me here," Ania sobbed. "You told me we'd come here on our wedding anniversary." "I was so scared after I realized I'd gotten lost. I couldn't remember anyone's phone number. The only place I could remember was here. I was afraid I'd never find my way home. I was afraid I'd never find you again." Listening to her words, Damien's eyes filled with tears. He pulled her close and cried with her. His wife had forgotten so many things because of Alzheimer's, yet she still remembered the promise they had made to spend every wedding anniversary together at the hot springs. That beautiful memory had remained deep inside her heart, while he had been the one who forgot it. "It's all right," Damien said softly as he held her face. "I'm here now. Let's go home together." Ania looked at him and gently shook her head. "I want to go to the hot springs." Damien looked into her eyes, overcome with emotion. He placed both hands on her shoulders to comfort her. "We'll go tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow we'll spend the whole day at the hot springs together." He carefully wiped the tears from her cheeks, then took her hand and led her into the hotel. That night, they stayed there together. The next morning, Damien took Ania to the hot springs. Watching her laugh and smile beside him, memories from the days they first fell in love came rushing back. Every memory they had shared was still alive in Ania's heart. She had never forgotten any of it. The one who had forgotten was him. Over the past few years, he'd become distant from her. While she continued giving everything she had to their family, he had been spending his time and affection on another woman. Looking at Ania's happy face, guilt filled his heart. He realized how badly he had failed the woman who had sacrificed everything for him. Damien stepped closer, wrapped his arms around Ania, and whispered, "I'm sorry." Ania looked up at him with a puzzled smile. "Why are you apologizing?" Damien stopped himself. He couldn't tell her the truth. He couldn't bring himself to admit that he had betrayed her. Ania smiled gently and shook her head. "You don't have anything to apologize for. Neither of us did anything wrong." Hearing those words only made Damien feel even worse. He silently promised himself that from now on he would stay by her side and make up for everything he had done. After Damien called to say he had found Ania, Cadence and Kyra immediately stopped searching. Olaf returned home, while Cadence drove Kyra back to wait for their parents. The following evening, Damien finally brought Ania home. The moment he opened the front door and helped her inside, Cadence and Kyra rushed over and threw their arms around their mother. "Mom, we're so sorry. We were so worried about you." "It's all right now," Ania said gently. "Your dad found me. Thank you for waiting for me." Both daughters buried their faces against her chest like little girls. They had never felt so grateful to have their mother safely back home. Throughout the entire reunion, Latifah sat quietly in the corner of the room. Every now and then, she glanced toward Ania but didn't dare walk over. Damien noticed his mother's unusual silence. "Mom, come with me. We need to talk," he said. Latifah slowly followed him into another room. As soon as the door closed, Damien looked at her and said, "Mom, please ask around and introduce me to a few women." Latifah's eyes lit up. "Really?" "No," Damien replied firmly. "Now isn't the time to talk about that. My wife is still alive. Why are you already trying to find another woman for me? She may still be alive. but she doesn't know anything anymore. Who's going to take care of you? I already told you to stop. Damien's voice grew colder. I don't understand what you're thinking anymore. After everything that happened, don't you feel guilty at all? Don't raise your voice at me, Latifah snapped. Then stop saying things like that. I forbid you from taking my wife out of this house again without my permission. What? Why can't I take her anywhere? Because if you lose her again, what happens if we never find her? Then maybe that's for the best, Latifah said without hesitation. I'd rather she disappeared somewhere no one could ever find her. Damien stared at his mother in disbelief. He couldn't believe she could say something so heartless. How can you say that? He asked. I'm never sending Ania to a nursing home, so give up on that idea. We've spent 25 years together. She's my wife. She's the most important person in my life. Now that she's sick, I'm not abandoning her. Latifah was so angry she could barely speak. You've lost your mind, she muttered. You're a fool. Just as Latifah reached the doorway, Ania walked into the room. She had heard every word her mother-in-law had said. Realizing that Ania had overheard the conversation, Latifah froze in place. She stood there in silence, unable to say a word. Ania slowly walked toward her. Her eyes were red with tears. Mom, were you really planning to abandon me on the road? She asked. Even though her cruel plan had been exposed, Latifah quickly forced herself to remain calm. She looked straight at Ania and answered, Yes. Why? Ania asked through her tears. Why do you hate me so much? I've sacrificed so much for this family. I've done everything I could to be a good wife and a good mother. I left my own child with my mother so I could work and support this family. I sacrificed my future so Damien could build his career. I raised our 2 daughters, bought this house, bought our cars, paid for the girls' education, and even helped them start their careers. Every meal this family has eaten was prepared by me. Why have you never acknowledged any of that? Why have you always criticized me and tried to push me out of this family? How could you be so cruel to me? Ania broke down crying. Years of pain and resentment finally poured out. She couldn't hold it inside any longer. Do you really think you're that great? Latifah shot back. I'm not saying I'm great, Ania replied, but I have sacrificed so much. I've been a good wife and a good mother. I deserve to stay here with my children. You have no right to force me out of my own home, Latifah sneered. I never thought someone like you could actually call herself a good wife. If you really cared about your husband and your children, you'd think about them instead of yourself. Before long, you'll become someone who can't remember anything. You'll only make your husband and your daughters suffer. Is that what you call sacrifice? Is that what you call loving your family? Living only to become a burden. What's the point of that? Stop it, Ania cried. You don't have the right to say that. I'm not a burden to my husband or my daughters. Every word from her mother-in-law felt like another knife cutting into her heart. She had tried to explain her feelings, hoping Latifah would finally understand and show her a little compassion. Instead, she was met with nothing but more cruel words. Mom, Ania's voice broke. You're a woman too. You're a mother. Why can't you understand me? I never wanted this illness. More than anyone else, I wanted to stay healthy so my husband and my family could live happily. But this disease chose me. I'm the one who's terrified. I only want to stay beside my husband and my children. Is that really such an unreasonable wish? Is it wrong for me to want to spend the rest of my life with the people I love? As she spoke, Ania slowly dropped to her knees. She broke down, crying in front of her mother-in-law. She could no longer hold back the grief that had been buried inside her heart. For the first time, Latifah felt a trace of regret. Her eyes became red. Deep down, she had never wanted Ania to become sick. She had wanted her daughter-in-law to stay healthy so she could continue taking care of Damien and her granddaughters. But every time she looked at Ania, she pictured the frightening Alzheimer's patients she had seen on television. She was terrified that one day Ania would hurt Damien or destroy the family's life. That fear had made her determined to send Ania away, and it had also made her say countless hurtful things. Their argument finally came to an end. Both women stood there in silence. Deep inside, each of them understood the other's feelings. Ania knew that if she were in Latifah's position, she would also want to protect her own child. She couldn't blame a mother for worrying about her son. What hurt her was that Latifah had only cared about Damien and had never once acknowledged everything Ania had sacrificed for this family. Still, After saying everything she had carried inside for so many years, Ania felt as though a heavy burden had finally been lifted. She no longer wanted to hate her mother-in-law. She only hoped that, from now on, Latifah would finally understand her and stand beside her in protecting this family. A year passed. Ania was still living at home, surrounded by the love and care of her family. Although Latifah still wasn't completely happy with her daughter-in-law, she stopped doing anything that might hurt her for Damien's sock. Every day, while everyone else was away, she stayed home to look after Ania. She often took her out for walks, but never let her out of her sight again because she was afraid Ania might wander off. Thanks to her family's constant care and timely treatment, Ania's condition remained stable. Olaf never stopped researching better treatment options for her. Because of his efforts, her memory problems did not worsen as quickly as expected. She was still clear-minded most of the time and continued living a happy life. Seeing that Olaf had never given up on her and had continued doing everything he could to help treat her mother, Cadence finally let go of her resentment. She promised they would face Amari together and patiently convince her to accept their relationship. Ever since Damien found Ania at the hot springs, he had realized how neglectful he had been and how deeply he had hurt her. He ended his relationship with Brianna and devoted his time to his wife instead. He often took Ania to the places she had loved years before, hoping those familiar memories would help slow the progress of her illness. During the New Year's holiday, Damien brought the entire family back to the hot springs. The moment Ania arrived, her face lit up with happiness. Watching her husband and daughters laughing together, Ania couldn't hold back her tears. The happier she felt, the more afraid she became. She was terrified that one day she would no longer recognize the people she loved most. She walked over to Cadence and Kyra, wiped the tears from her face, opened her arms, and pulled both daughters into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'm so sorry. If the day comes when I don't remember either of you anymore." "Mom," Cadence said gently, holding her close. "Please don't cry. We'll always be here with you." Kyra nodded through her own tears. "If you forget, we'll remember for you. We'll be your legs when you can't find your way, your memory when yours begins to fade, and your heart whenever you need to remember how to love. So please, Mom, don't cry anymore. We love you." Hearing those words, Ania held her daughters even tighter. Damien stood nearby, quietly watching the three women he loved most. He looked up at the clear blue sky and silently thanked God for giving him another chance to cherish the family he had nearly lost. Families may argue. They may hurt one another. There are even times when they drift apart. Even so, the bond between loved ones can remain stronger than any misunderstanding. The woman who had quietly endured years of loneliness inside her own home was finally surrounded by the love and care of her family when she needed them most. Time is limited, and the day we have to say goodbye to the people we love will come for every family, whether we're ready or not. That's why we shouldn't wait to show our love and appreciation, especially to someone like Ania, a woman who gave everything she had to her husband and children without ever asking for anything in return. Her family finally understood that, and because they did, they were able to fill her remaining days with the happiness she had always deserved. Perhaps that's something many of us hope to do for the people we love as well.